Hi guys, and welcome to Hillbilly Military Modeling. Today I'll be doing the third part of the VW Type 82 Kubelwagen by Italeri, which is painting and weathering. But first, if you like what you see, please hit the like button. If you'd like to follow me on YouTube, subscribe. And if you would like to be notified when I post new content, such as this video, then go ahead and hit the notification bell. So let's go ahead and get into it. And here we have our Kubelwagen assembled without the wheels and also without the folded top. The top we'll assemble later. When I assembled this vehicle, if you see my previous video on assembly, I decided to build this the same way that aircraft modelers build their aircraft cockpits. That way I could do some detail painting on the inside of the vehicle without having to worry too much about getting paint up on the inside where I didn't want it, where it was hard to deal with. It's much easier to detail the inside when you can reach everything. So what I did was I went ahead and mixed up my paint for the interior, which is going to be the same color for the exterior. When these vehicles came out of the factory, the interior and exterior were painted the same German Panzer gray. I have lightened that gray just a little bit, so it'll be the same color that I will use for the exterior of the vehicle. And then we're going to be using a hairspray technique, and we're going to paint it desert and do some chipping, and so that's yet to come. I'm getting ahead of myself there. To tell you about the paint, what we used was German Panzer Gray from Vallejo, and we also used white from Vallejo. The mixture, I'm not real exact on the mixtures. What I did was I started with the German Panzer Gray, added white until I came up with a gray that is just slightly in tone lighter than what's on the box art. And the reason why is because when acrylics dry, they're going to dry darker than when they go down wet. So this is going to get us pretty close. And you got to remember these vehicles were in use, so paint fades, so an exact match is, I mean, it's up to you, it's your model. You can go ahead and do whatever it is that you'd like. So after spraying the interior and painting the floor tan, I went ahead and painted and installed the seats, which is painted leather. I used the Model Master acrylic 4674. And then on the dash, just to color in the dials, we went ahead and used testers, which is an enamel, flat metal or flat gun metal. It's really hard to see there, I understand, but that's what I used on that. And there's not a lot in there. The gear shifter, the pedals, and the handbrake I painted in Tamiya acrylic German gray, just to get a little bit of contrast. Now there's not much inside there, so you don't have to worry about a whole lot of painting. We'll be able to get in there and do some weathering later. So the technique that we're going to use to paint this, we're going to paint, I'm going to go ahead and mask off the interior to protect it. And then we're going to use the white on black pre-shading technique. So we're going to paint everything with Vallejo black. And then we're going to come back and do the pre-shading highlights with the Vallejo white. And once I get that painted up, I'll come back and show you what it looks like. In preparation for painting, I like to separate the parts from the part sprues. That way I don't have any sprue contact points to have to clean up later, and it just makes it easier. So what I have here is the purple painter's tape from 3M, and it's not real tacky, but it will hold the parts in place so that you can go ahead and paint them. And after they dry, you can flip them over and paint the other side. And since we're using acrylic paints, if you've not used acrylic paints before, I will tell you that they dry rather rapidly. In all these, because I'm using an airbrush, as I mix these paints and I get the color I want, then I'll go ahead and thin it so that it'll work good in the airbrush. Now, one note is that make sure that you make a large enough batch of whatever color that you're mixing that you can complete the entire model, because the last thing you want to do is get halfway or 2/3 of the way through your build, or painting rather, and only to find out that you didn't mix enough, and then your next mix is slightly shaded off, which means you're going to have to go back over and repaint some stuff in order to blend that in. So make sure that you start off with enough paint if you are mixing your own colors. If you're using straight out of the bottle, then that's not an issue as far as the color and color match. What I do is with acrylics is to thin it, and I use this reducer right here, which is available locally at a hobby store near me, and it's fairly inexpensive, so I use this to do my thinning. When you get ready to airbrush, the consistency, everybody's going to tell you something different. Most people agree that the starting consistency should be that of milk. So a good starting point is 60% paint, and if you're mixing colors in order to lighten or darken or change it, start off with your paint first and then add 40% of your reducer after you've mixed the color that you want. Okay, and that'll help with the flow through your airbrush. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and put everything sticky put everything in a good base black all over the vehicle, and we will paint all this too, and you don't really need to see that, I don't think, and we will come back in and do some highlights, probably on the tops of the fenders, right, pre-shading across the vent there, maybe a little bit on the headlights, top of the blackout drive shade. So we'll do all that, and then I'll let you see what it looks like before we go to the next step, which would be painting the color of the vehicle, which is going to be German Panzer Gray in the shade that I've pre-mixed. Alright, so here we are. We've got our black base coat down, and as you can see, we've done a little bit of white highlights, tops of the fenders, right up here in front of the windshield. I didn't do a whole lot on the side. I didn't do anything rather on the sides or back here over the engine cover, because we're going to be doing the chipping method anyway, but I do like to try to get some variation there. It may come through, probably won't be able to see any of it, but if we were just going to leave the vehicle gray, the pre-tinting would be very important at that juncture. But since we're going to go ahead and do this in a desert sand with the hairspray technique for chipping, I didn't do a whole lot of that shading. The other thing is, as you can see, everything's in black. For the wheels, what I've done is I went and made some masks, and the way I did that was I put masking tape down on wax paper, and I used a 1/2 inch punch out the centers, and then just mask off the wheel, and that protects it from overspray. So if you do have any little bit of overspray around the rim, a little bit of black panel liner will just clean that right up for you. So that's the easy way of doing that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mask this wheel up and go back to the paint booth, and we're going to shoot this whole thing in German gray. We also have our steering wheel. We can't forget about that. I left that out because of the having to mask off everything in the interior, since we pre-painted that, and we didn't want anything to affect the way we had to mask that. It just made it harder on us. So that's kind of a simplified way of doing that. So what we're going to do is take this back to the paint booth, and we're going to shoot our gray on it. Okay, so here we are back from the paint booth, and we've shot everything in Panzer Gray. Take a look here. You can see where the white highlights kind of comes through right through here, top of the fenders. So that pre-shading helped bring out the colors for us a little bit. Now acrylics dry really fast, but they don't cure in a matter of minutes. You need to give it 3 or 4 hours to actually cure, and a lot of that depends upon how much it's thinned, you know. So I'm going to have to wait until this cures before I seal it, because it's very important that I seal it, because I'm going to seal it with a gloss clear coat. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I want to protect this finish from the next step. And after I have sealed it with the acrylic clear coat, gloss coat, and the reason why is because the gloss coat is going to allow me to reactivate the hairspray. So after it's sealed and dry with the gloss clear coat, I'm going to take and spray the entire model and the wheels. Not so worried about the back sides. You're not going to see those, but I'm going to spray it with the hairspray and let that dry completely. 2 thin coats is what's recommended. So, and this is the first time that I've tried this hairspray technique, so I'll be really interested in seeing if all my hard work has gone down the tubes or not with it. I guess you'll see it with me. So anyway, we're going to put the hairspray on there, 2 coats of it. We're going to let it dry in between the coats. Once that has completely dried, we're going to mix up we're going to take our German dark yellow, and we're going to add a little white to it to give us a desert yellow, and we're going to spray that over top of the hairspray, and then we're going to use the water activation technique to chip the yellow from the gray paint. We didn't do too bad with our color match. You got to remember now we've got a black base coat underneath it, and here you can see that is the gray, and here is our gray. So we did pretty good. I guess you could say the technique I used is the hillbilly technique, which is that looks like enough. So we kind of got lucky there. It doesn't always work out that way. So that looks really good. So we're going to let this cure, and then I will put the clear coat over top of it, and we'll do the hairspray, and I'll let you guys see that as I do it. I won't do that off camera. So stick with me. I'll be right back. painted, and we have our clear coat on it, and we're getting ready to hairspray it. We're also going to do the wheel backs and the wheel rims. So I can't do this on camera because I'm afraid the hairspray, which this is the hairspray chipping technique, I'm afraid it's going to get on the camera, and you got to spray this thing at arm's length. So I'm going to spray it, and we're going to give it a real fine mist coat. It takes 2 coats. I'll do the first coat and let you see what that looks like. So hang on a second, I'll do this off camera. As you can see, it's really shiny. Okay, that's just the first mist coat, and I'm going to let that dry. What we don't want is we don't want it to build up in a thick film. That's why we do it at arm's length, and you just kind of mist it over it. And because of that, you need to put 2 coats on it. But if you spray too close, you're going to get a thick film on there, and what will happen is when you put your since we're doing this in a desert tan, desert yellow, when you put that on there, when you go to activate it and chip it off, it'll come off in big chunks rather than the little pieces that we want. So I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to go ahead and do the rims and the backs of the wheels, and get 2 coats on that. And then I'm going to paint it up real good, and then I'll come back and show you the chipping method. Okay, so here we are. I've removed all the masking and everything from the final painting, and we got our desert tan on, and I started chipping off camera because I didn't know if it was going to work or not, and I wanted to know what I was doing before I got started filming. And I do apologize for the camera. It's not the greatest, but to show you the process, well, first I started chipping the other side, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that this is the side that we haven't done anything to, and of course we painted over the hairspray, and this is the side that we started our chipping on. And as you can see, all the high spots has got chips, and then in some of the low spots also we got chips on top of the fender, right, inside the fender and the wheel well areas. So those are starting to come out nicely, and you can do as much chipping or as little chipping as possible. It all depends upon what you want to do. So to start the process is what we do is I take a brush and some water, and I want to moisten the paint, and I'm going to let that soak in for a minute. And when I start my chipping, I will start the chipping really light with a stiff brush to see how fast it's activating underneath, because I don't want to pull off big chunks of paint. So you need to vary how much pressure you're using and use a stiff brush. I started off with a brush that was too soft. I have a cut down stippling brush here that I'm using. It's working really well, and let me put a little bit more water on that, and it starts to go pretty quick. Once it starts, you'll see that there it goes. See? I don't know if you can see that or not. So I'll just keep a paper towel to wipe your chips off on. And now the door handles, most of the paint or all the paint will be gone from them from The guy's using the door handles, rubbing all the paint off. Put some more water on here. And this is the first time I've ever done this to a model, so I was skeptical as to whether or not this was going to work. And starting to see we're getting our little chips coming off, and that is exactly what we want it to do. Now these raised areas are going to chip faster than the flat areas. You need to get down around the rocker panel there, and we're getting little bitty chips coming off, and that's good. That's exactly what we want it to do. Starting to dry out on me a little bit. There we go. Put some more water on it. Work on these hinges a little bit. Yeah, that's nice. And that, oh yeah, that's working really good right there. And get up here a little bit. Over here. And want to get right down in here real good. This is where rocks and stuff is gonna, there we go, that's nice. Be caught up, got a little bit too much on that edge right there. But if you get too much hairspray underneath, you can get big pieces come off, so we're not going to work on that area anymore. We're going to stay away from that. And there we go. See, it's working really nice. A little glossy there for the camera. I'm sorry about that, but yeah, it's coming off. And as you can see, this side has dried, but we have nice chipping effects going on there. A little bit of a big piece on top of the fender, so we'll stay away from that. And the good thing is, once you go over the entire vehicle, you can come back and address areas that you haven't gotten. I haven't gotten up in here yet, but as you can see, this is the first that I've tried this side, and it is coming off nicely. Now, of course, where the soldiers have their arms on the top of the door, you're going to have more chipping there, so we'll take and work that a little bit here. And it gives a more realistic paint chipping effect, because in essence what you're really doing is you're chipping paint off, and so it looks like real chipping. And so we got a real nice start on this side, and we will do the fenders. Of course, you're going to have more chipping on edges and on the corners and what have you. Definitely your tow hooks and stuff, and around the back we'll get more on that. But it's starting to really come through for us, so won't be long. We'll be catching up to this side, and then we can go back and address any areas that we would like more chipping or less chipping. We'll just leave that alone. But inside the wheel wells too, we're going to do those. I've done them on this side. I'll probably go back and do a little bit more on that, because it's going to kick up a lot of rock, a lot of sand, because this is a vehicle from the desert campaign in North Africa. So it also really helps. Here's a wheel that's not been chipped, and here we have one that has been chipped, and you can see the detail, I hope, nicely, where it has gotten around the lugs and the rims, And there's a little bit of overspray, but that's no big deal. We'll use some Tamiya panel liner. Come back and dress up that little bit of overspray there. But now overspray is not a bad thing. When these vehicles went into theater, if they were painted in theater, they didn't mask stuff off. They just went ahead and sprayed the paint right onto the vehicle, and they didn't worry about things like mirrors and wheels and tires and stuff like that. They just put the paint on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get all this chipped up, and I think it's going to look fantastic. So after we get done chipping and get it the way we want it to look, we will go back over it and clear coat it again in order to protect all that. But we'll have to wait and make sure that everything dries really good before clear coating it. After it's clear coated, we'll come back and we will touch up and paint our pioneering tools. So the pick, the shovel, we'll get that done, and we'll be able to go ahead and put the wheels on, and then we will address our windshield wipers and all that. So, alright, I'll be right back. We finished our chipping. We went ahead and assembled the wheels on it, and we put our painted up folded canvas top that's on there, and we've clear coated the entire thing, and I've also removed the mask off of the windshield. We're going to have to paint the windshield wipers. I did put a couple little scratches in it before I did all that with the toothpick. Little areas where you can see the pick would have come in contact with the fender, and so yeah, I think our wire chipping looks really good. You can see here on this front pan, get it where you can see it. There we go. There would have been a lot of removal of the paint right here because of all the debris coming up in the desert, and the same thing on the back of the vehicle. So we've chipped that up pretty good. So anyway, all this has already been coated with clear coat. I used dull clear coat, and so what we have left to do is to come back in. Oh, before I clear coated it, let me mention this. We had a little bit of overspray on the rims, and I came in and I used the Panaline accent color from Tamiya. This is the black, to dress up the rims on the vehicle. And that's the only black I'm going to use on this. And then after that had dried, then I went ahead and clear coated everything. And going back to the windshield, I've pulled the mask off, and I'm going to make the masks for the windshield wiper path, and I will put those masks on after I've painted the detail on the windshield wiper. So I've got that to do. I got to paint the mirror. I'll paint the shovel and the pick. The metal I'm going to do in gunmetal, and then I'll do the handles in wood. And I'm also going to take this Tamiya Panaline accent color brown and kind of highlight the rims a little bit, and we'll probably do maybe around the headlight mountings and around the top of the hood here a little bit, and just wherever we need to bring out a little bit of detail. And I'm using brown because this is a desert vehicle, and black might be a little bit too stark, so this will be a good color for that. After all that's done, we're going to make a wash. And the color I'm going to use is this right here. This is Tamiya XF57 Buff. And the mixture I'm going to use is going to be 1 part paint, then 3 parts water and 3 parts alcohol. And I'm going to take a brush and come in with the wash that we make up there, and we're going to do the tread depths and the circumference of each wheel. Now we won't do the spare tire, but we'll do all 4 of the wheels on the ground. And after that sets up and dry, we're going to dilute our buff a little bit more so that we can do a filter. And we'll put that in our airbrush and we'll filter the buff over the entire vehicle, really light, let it dry, and then we'll come back in and spray only from the top angle, because we want all of these horizontal surfaces here to be settled with more dust. So the tops of the fenders, the cargo compartment up front, the engine cover in the back, and the back of the vehicle, that's going to be slightly darker than the sides. The vertical sides of the vehicle will be a little bit lighter than the rest of it, and that'll give us a dusty appearance. And after that's done, we'll clear coat it. Oh, I'm sorry, we also have to do our decals. Let's not forget to do those decals. After the decals are on, we'll clear coat it, and then we'll take our masks off on the windshield, from the windshield wear areas, and then we'll remove the masking off of the back of the windshield, because I still have that on there. And we're going to call it done at that point. So our hairspray chipping technique turned out pretty good. I'm really pleased with that. Being the first time I've ever done it, I'm quite surprised that I didn't have any real issues. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done, and then I'll bring it back for a final reveal. Here we are with our final reveal on the Kubelwagen. We have our tools all painted up, and if I can get the camera stabilized, there we go. We have our dusting, our effects on the tires. The chipping technique come out pretty good. The decals are on, and as you can see, we did the windshield clean swipe areas. Everything was misted over with the wash, which was 1 part buff, Tamiya FX57, and 3 parts water and 3 parts rubbing alcohol or isopropyl alcohol, and I think it looks pretty good. So if you would, please enjoy, and if you think this is a nice looking model, just go ahead and like. I'd appreciate that. And if you have any comments or any suggestions, I would really appreciate those as well. So thank you very much.